Biliyor musun? Erken rezervasyon başladı. Yazın en renkli fırsatları cyprusparadise.com'da. %40, %50 hatta %60'a varan kaçırılmaz indirimler. Erken rezervasyon yap, uçak bileti fiyatına paket tatili al. Uygun fiyata Kıbrıs tatilinin adresi cyprusparadise.com. Zaman akıp gitmeden acele edin. Bir bakmışsınız yaz gelmiş. Cyprus Paradise. Tatiliniz bizimle güvende.
Kalitenin, güvenin, hızlı teslimatın adresi Ancon Furniture. Ancon Furniture ailesi olarak yeni ürünler ile hizmete devam etmekteyiz. Yeni model koltuk takımlarımız, yatak mekanizmaları bir dokunuş ile açılıp bir dokunuş ile kapanabilmektedir. Bir dokunuş ile açtığımız yatak mekanizmasının yatak çarşafı kullanıma hazır, serili olarak içinden çıkmaktadır. Yıl sonuna kadar herhangi bir koltuk takımı alan her müşterimize akıllı sehpa hediyemizdir. En iyi ürün, en iyi fiyat. Sadece Ancon Furniture'da. Bize uğramadan karar vermeyin. En iyisini biz yapana kadar daha iyisi yok.
Hello and welcome to another episode of New Perspectives with myself, your host Ertan Karpazli. And today, once again, we are discussing a very little known topic within the Turkish Cypriot community, and that is the forgotten Turkish Cypriots of Palestine. Now, those of you who follow our show would know that this is actually a part two of this topic, because we previously covered this topic last week, in which we had a guest who was a Palestinian living in Jordan of Turkish Cypriot heritage, who shared with us her story of trying to get her Turkish Cypriot citizenship and getting the Turkish Cypriot government in North Cyprus to actually recognize her as a Turkish Cypriot. And the reason why we actually started doing this program was obviously because of what was going on in Palestine and what has been happening in Palestine over the past couple of weeks, where the Israeli security forces have been actually evicting Palestinians from their homes and bombing the blockaded Gaza Strip. Now, we know through our interactions with certain members of the Palestinian community that there could be an estimated 100,000 Palestinians, whether they be in Palestine or living in other countries, that have at least one Turkish Cypriot grandparent. And this is based on our estimates. And today we actually have another Palestinian of Turkish Cypriot origin who is currently living in Jordan. His name is Riyad Balawi, and he is joining us from Jordan right now. Riyad, welcome to the show, Riyad.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. And we also have a more well-known face joining us today, who was on our previous show. We have Huseyin Bakayi, also known as Huseyin Hoca. Welcome, Huseyin Hoca. How are you?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Riyad. Ahlan wa sahlan. Thanks for coming on the show.
That's my pleasure, Wallah. Thank you.
So those of you who tuned into last week's program would have heard the story of Nariman, who was a lawyer, a Palestinian lawyer of Turkish Cypriot heritage, living in Jordan. She shared with us her story, and Huseyin Hoca was with us as well, sharing his insights into numerous Turkish Cypriot personalities and people from the past who migrated to not only Syria, but also Syria, not only Palestine, but also Syria and Lebanon. Including the relatives of the current Jordanian royal family and also the previous royal family in Egypt. He shared with us those interesting stories, so hopefully we'll be hearing more from him later on in the show. But right now, I really just want to focus on our main guest, Riyad Balawi, the Turkish Cypriot Palestinian living in Jordan. Riyad, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Ertan. As a start, I would like to introduce myself as a Jordanian from Palestinian origin, because, I was born in Jordan, 1967, so I am Jordanian. But I will never, of course, I will never ever forget my Palestinian originality. So that's how I introduce myself. And of course, my other part is that I have my grandmother, she's Turkish Cypriot. So I'm proud to have that, let's say, collection. And I act like this. So I will start with my story. My grandmother, she was born in Girne, maybe 19, that's not confirmed, but I think it's 1916 or 1918 maximum. My grandfather, he is a Palestinian as well, he's Jordanian Palestinian as well. And at that time, it was easy to travel between Palestine, Jordan, Cyprus, Turkey, whatever, because no borders, nothing at its close, and so they can do it easily. And he married my grandmother. I think it's 1933, around that. So it's a long time ago. He was from rich, well-known family here, and they lived in north of Jordan, Irbid, long time ago, because they came here after the war of 1948, or during the war of 1948. That's the Nakba, we call it, when the so-called Israel was established, and they, let's say, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians had to leave their land, had to leave their homes, and go mainly to Jordan, and some of them went to Lebanon, others went to Syria and Egypt, as you know. So it's long story with occupation, with discriminancy, the same what happened to North Cyprus, and we know the history now, which is not clear to most of the people, but we know it. And I think that we have almost the same history with that type of suffering, which we hope that we can fix it anytime, hopefully soon, inshallah. So he came to Palestine, and from Palestine to Jordan with the grandmother, and they stayed there. And she lived in extremely proper way. And of course, my family, their relatives, they thought that she went to Palestine. They didn't know that they had to go to Jordan. So they tried to look for her in Palestine. They were asking, merchants, whoever going to Haifa, Jaffa, those cities, asking about her, if they can know her. Nobody knows, because she was in Irbid, in north of Jordan, staying here due to the war. At last,
So basically, what happened was they were living in Palestine as a normal family. Your grandmother had migrated from Cyprus as a Turkish Cypriot. She was living in Palestine. And then in 1948, when Israel established itself as a state, it evicted Palestinians from their homes and sent them off as refugees to places like Jordan. And then your grandmother's relatives, Turkish Cypriot relatives from Cyprus, tried to come to Palestine after 1948 to look for her, but they couldn't find her. And at that point, obviously, there was no mobile phones, no internet. It was very hard to find people. So did they lose touch after that point?
Yeah, that's right. They lost touch for, let's say, a few years. I will not say that much, but they lost touch at that time. Because both families, my grandfather, my family from my father's side, and my family from my mother's side, both of them, they came from Palestine to Jordan at that time, 1948. So my origin, you see my name, it's Riyad Balawi. Balawi, it's related to a village in Tul Karim in Palestine. And my other family, my grandmother to my mother, he is called Hassan al-Wazani. That's related to another village in Nablus. So both of them Palestinians, but they had to leave their homes and come to Jordan in 1948. Of course, after that, maybe I think in the 1950s, she could visit Cyprus for the first time. She could go by air, of course, from Amman, and she started visiting.
20 years. Roughly 20 years after she left Cyprus, she was able to go back for the first time.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Yeah, she started going there, and let's say some visits she took her daughters with her. Even that's my mother, my late mother. She went for one time. My another aunties, they went with her. Every one of them, he went for one time at least. So they have a memory. My mother and my auntie. My auntie now, she's still living and she has good health. Alhamdulillah, she's now around 76 years, and she has good memory for the region because she stayed for 40 days. So she knew the family. She heard about it all. And it kept like this till the war in 1974. At that time, all communication was cut. No one could go there until she passed away in 1981, my grandmother. She passed away. Of course, nothing we can do to go to Cyprus at that time. And this is,
So that's an interesting point you just made, Riyad. So your grandmother, obviously, she managed to get back in touch with her relatives in Cyprus in the 1950s. And she managed to stay in touch with them for perhaps around 2 decades. She was coming and going to Cyprus. Yet in 1974, when the island was split and North Cyprus kind of established itself as a separate entity, it's kind of ironic that even though she was Turkish Cypriot, she's born in Cyprus, she's 100% Turkish Cypriot, she couldn't go to North Cyprus. So why was that? Do you have any answers?
Yeah, at that time, no crossing points and no way to, people, they don't know how to go even through Turkey. Before that, she used to have a visa from the, let's say, from the English embassy in Amman to go to Cyprus, by the way. I have her passport. At that time, it is with me, and I see all visas, everything. She used to has a visa. And after that, there was no way, after the war, it was a closed country. No one knows about the situation inside, no communication, no phone calls, nothing. So honestly, it was extremely difficult to identify a way how to go. Till now, lots of people, let's say in our region, in the Gulf region, in Jordan, they don't know how to go to the north side, by the way. It's not easy.
So what's interesting is your grandmother, she was obviously Turkish Cypriot, but she was born in, you said 1916 to 1918. So in those years, Cyprus was under British occupation, but hadn't officially become a colony of Britain at the time. It became a colony of Britain in 1925. So your grandmother, when she was born, she was an Ottoman citizen. It is likely that later, after the official annexation of Cyprus by Britain, it's likely she actually became a British citizen. So she should have really had like a British passport, and during the British occupation years, it would have been very easy for her to go to Cyprus. But unfortunately, it seems that after the end of the British occupation of Cyprus in 1960, something got lost in translation, and she went from being a Turkish Cypriot native to Cyprus to being just another Jordanian citizen, the same way, any other foreigner would be a Jordanian citizen. And I think that's the problem there. So it's very strange. I find it very strange that someone who's born and raised in Cyprus, the Turkish Cypriot, for some reason they've winded up not inheriting their Turkish Cypriot citizenship. It's very strange. I think some bureaucratic problems.
That's right. That's absolutely correct what you are saying. Yes, and even at that time, as in the last episode, you were talking about the translation, the whatever. So, her family, her grandfather, he was kassab in Turkish. He was a butcher. Huh? So when he came to Jordan, they translated that to Arabic. It's converted to laham. So we all know our grandmother as Zahra al-Laham, and eventually when we met our family, we knew that it was related to Kassab. He was her father, he was Qassab, and he was named as Hassan Qassab at that time in Cyprus. So this is one of the problems, in addition to changing the name while getting married to another person, getting the family of the husband. And this is, I don't know, this is against the Islamic even rules. They do it. And when we apply to our IDs, they asked, my wife, they were about to call her Dua Balawi, which is, for us, it's not normal, and we don't accept it. And we had to sign documents to change it to her family. She's Dua Asmadi. She will never be Dua Balawi. That's something she should be named for her father, not for her husband. And this was one point that a little bit confused us. That having the lots of family names, that is strange, that they are not like each other, because each Auntie Nevbar, Auntie Ingen, whoever, they have different family names. And this was one of the challenges that we had to gather to get to know each other and know our family.
Of course, you mentioned your wife there. Your wife is also she's a distant relative of yours, and you have the same grandmother. So she's also part
that's
Turkish
right.
Cypriot. And the name Kasap,
yes, she's my cousin.
Kasap is a very common surname in North Cyprus. We all know somebody who has the surname Kasap or Kasapolo. And you said that they've literally translated Kasap, which means butcher in English. They translated it to Arabic. And even if they had kept the name Kasap, what's interesting is in Arabic, you don't have the letter P. You have the letter B, so it would be Kasab in Arabic, wouldn't it? And in Turkish is with the P. So the spelling would be different. Now, in the Ottoman times, we were all using the same alphabet. Turks, Arabs, we were using the Ottoman alphabet, and it would have all been spelt the same way. But then later, when the Turkish Cypriots left the Ottoman alphabet and adopted the Latin alphabet, they started changing the spelling of certain words. So the B in the Ottoman alphabet got changed to a P, whereas within the Arab world, the B kind of remains there as a B. So certain spellings changed, which have made it very difficult for Turkish Cypriots who are living in the Middle East today, who have the same surname but different spelling. It makes it very difficult for them to go back to Cyprus and say, hey, we're actually the same family here. And ironically, I remember in myself, a Turkish woman from Iran actually contacted me many years ago. And my surname is obviously Karpazli, but my grandmother's side of the family, they're Karagözlü, which is a family in Chatos in Serdal, North Cyprus. And this woman in Iran was saying that her surname was Garagozlu, the same name but spelt differently, spelt in a more Iranian fashion. And she was claiming to be my relative. I was about 20 years old at the time. I had no idea about these things. And I'm like, how the hell did this happen? I didn't understand, but today I'm beginning to understand through the examples that you cited. So yeah, please, Riyad, if you can, tell us a little bit more about your grandmother.
Yeah, my grandmother, as I said, she was, honestly, she was living here, extremely loved person, because she was very, very, very kind. And of course, when we met her family, we knew the reason, it's all a kind family. And she, we dealt with her as a queen, she was a queen, honestly. Everyone, small children, elder guys, everyone loved her because she was extremely kind. She was, even after 50 years in marriage in Jordan, she was not speaking Arabic that much. You will notice the Turkish slang accent. It is there when she calls us, whatever. So this, of course, and during her life, it's good that we knew that she visited Cairo several times. She used to go with my grandfather to Al-Aqsa. She went to Cairo. She performed Hajj, alhamdulillah, in Mecca. She visited Saudi Arabia several times. She went to Kuwait, Syria. She lived well, alhamdulillah. She lived well, and that goes opposite to the, let's say, what we see nowadays. I've seen some pages from Turkish Cypriots. They are claiming that those girls from Turkish Cypriots, they were sold to Arabs. And that's, of course, I extremely disagree with that point, because at that time, we have almost same history. We have same origins. Before 1916, all of us, we were under the Ottoman Empire. We were under Islam umbrella. So there is nothing to say that you can sell your daughter or whatever. They were living, and we know lots of them. Honestly, here in Jordan, all of them, they were living in an extremely nice way. And whenever there is a chance, she can go to her family, she can visit them. So unfortunately, we lost her. She was not that much old, 1981. She was in the 60s, but she had emergency case, and she passed away. And that was his life in Jordan. After that, still she has 3 daughters. One of them is my mother. My mother, she passed away even a few years ago, and all the time she was telling us and other aunties, you have to find the family of your grandmother, because they visited Turkish Cyprus, and they know it very well, and they would like to meet the family again, to have the family gathering. That's why we started, and maybe, yeah.
So you stayed in touch with Cyprus, and sorry to interrupt, but I'm just going to compare you to our previous guest who was on last week, Nariman. Again, very similar to you. She's a Palestinian living in Jordan with a Turkish Cypriot grandmother. And she was complaining, obviously you watched the show, she was complaining about her difficulties in getting her North Cyprus citizenship. And she's, alleging many things that, they've not kept the records of her grandmother, and therefore she's not able to get her citizenship, many bureaucratic problems like that. Now, Riyad, from what I've been told, you've actually been successful in getting your North Cyprus citizenship. So what advice could you give to Nariman? And actually, after last week's show, we had many Turkish Cypriots, or Arabs even, coming forward with similar stories, saying that, hey, look, we have Turkish Cypriot origins as well. So actually, it is a widespread issue. There is a huge community out there, but until this day, perhaps even until this show, no one's really spoken about it. So what advice can you give to Turkish Cypriots who are in your position, living in the Middle East, who want to build that connection to Cyprus, to actually get their citizenship? What can you tell them?
Well, I think the most important is that if you find your relatives, I think this is the best approach. If you find them, it will be very, very easy for you. And if it's in the north side, your origin is in the north side, because to be honest, even I have lots of friends from the south, but the government in the south, they are not cooperative at all in this issue, and even they put lots of restrictions to visit the country, and they know, and they don't admit, they don't recognize my Turkish Cypriot ID, by the way. Till now, I'm now almost 7 years having the ID, the passport, whatever, but I cannot go there with my the North Cypriot ID. They don't recognize it, and they will not allow me even. I have my Schengen visa all the time. It's okay, I can go, and I have difficulty. I feel it. They don't like us to come, but let's say for my wife, they called me once, they rejected her visa, and they told me that she passed to the north, and we came legally. Their regulations, it's legal. You are not allowed to go from Turkey. You should go from the south, and you can cross the point. And we did it. And they said, no, you crossed to the north, so we will reject the visa. I said, it's okay, rejected, that's it. So our good luck may be that we found our family. Of course, it was not easy to find them, as I told you, for the lots of challenges, but we did a huge, let's say, search on the internet. And who led that? He was my cousin, Dr. Osama, I think Brother Huseyin, he knows him. He did extensive search, and I referred to him, honestly. He started the first communication with our family. And when we saw them on video for the first time, Allah, I don't know. I felt at that time maybe my mother, her soul will be happy at that time, because it was really emotional that you see after all this time, and it's honestly, I don't know what to say, but I felt that I'm talking to my mother, honestly, or my grandmother. They look the same, they act the same. So it was very, very one of the recognized moments of my life, honestly, for me and for my family, to meet my family in Cyprus. And we did the first visit there, 2014, late, I think in November, something like that. And we met the family. We met the two aunties. They were there, hosting us. We contacted them. And then we had a tour. We met all of the older people who were living. Yes, in the last 7 years, we lost several. Unfortunately, we lost several of them. But at that time, I met them all, honestly. I had the opportunity to see them all. And this was, excellent opportunity for me. I was not thinking of...
Did they help you to get your citizenship?
They offered me. They told me in the first visit that, as long as you are our relative and our close relative, you should take your ID. I wasn't thinking about it, honestly. That my goal at that time, I would like to meet my family, and that's it. Alhamdulillah, we are living well here in Jordan. We have, I did not introduce myself from the first beginning. For myself, I forgot to introduce myself to the audience, but we are living in very nice way, alhamdulillah. I'm an engineer. I retired from the army after 25 years of service as a colonel, and then I'm working now in the private sector as an expert in military field. My wife, she's a doctor. I have, let's say, extended family from all sides. They are all engineers, doctors, working in different areas in the region. So, alhamdulillah, shukr, it's all good. My intention, it was only to meet my family, and that was, and there are some maybe habits in Cyprus. When I left after the first visit, my late Aunt Nevbar, which I miss her very much, really. She passed away a few months ago, and the family was there. They supported us, all of them. Chimin, Devrim, Auntie Ingen, whoever. When I left, I just turned my face to say bye in the car, and I saw them, pouring water after me. So I had to go to the Google to see what does that mean, And I knew that it was a good thing that they would like to see me again, or they would like to see me safe. So I knew that we established the connection with them. What I say, so I came back again. Allah,
you met your family in Cyprus, and they immediately opened their arms to you. They didn't treat you like foreigners or anything like that. And
no, I did not.
They helped you to transition back into lifestyle in Cyprus, and so I believe, like some people in your position, unfortunately, they've not been able to find their relatives, and they've not been able to keep that connection after many decades of separation from Cyprus. Obviously, there are ways nowadays where you can kind of help find your relatives. I know Ancestry.com is with them. You do a DNA test, and they find up to your 8th cousins. I mean, I've done this DNA test, and I found cousins in Colombia. So especially if you're living in the Middle East, and you've got 4th cousins in Cyprus, it will definitely find them.
Yes.
But some people they have their reservations about these tests, and it's very difficult to find their relatives. Do you feel that perhaps North Cyprus, or maybe even South Cyprus, actually, because you did mention about how the bad treatment you've got from the Greek side of Cyprus, which shouldn't necessarily be the case, because end of the day you were Cypriot citizens first. Do you believe that there should be some kind of representation, particularly of the North Cyprus, in countries like Jordan, in countries like Egypt, where people like yourself reside, to help build that bridge between North Cyprus and the Turkish Cypriot diaspora in these Middle Eastern countries?
Yes, honestly, I would like to have them represented for two reasons. And one of them, of course, to support us as Turkish Cypriots to, let's say, to stay connected with our country and to strengthen our relation with our country, which we like, and we would like to make it more effective, and we would like to be more effective in the society as well in Turkish Cypriot. For me, I would like to go for elections. If there's any election, I would like to go there. I have the right to give my vote. So, and we are here. We are not small. Like even Uncle Ali, he passed away, but he told me that you have to bring your relatives to give their votes here, and this will be our pleasure, of course. But our government, they have miscommunication with those families outside. Of course, they have, and I've seen in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Emirates, where you don't see Turkish Cypriots there. Minor amount of Turkish Cypriots, maybe going from Jordan to, they are living in Qatar and United Arab Emirates, whatever. But they don't have any, let's say, no economic relations, no political relations, nothing effective. And they should focus on countries like Jordan and Egypt, where they have majority of Turkish Cypriots. We need them to support us. We would like to have some place that a representative that represents Turkish Cypriot, Turkish Cyprus directly, not through Turkey, even, with all respect to Turkey, but still, it is Turkish's embassy, it's not our embassy. The other thing is that I would like to see a promotion for Cyprus in the Gulf region, in our region. I would like people to know about our land, our problem there. With whatever happens, I would like to see our country recognized. I would like to see my ID recognized. I would like to see people going there for tourism, to visit the country, to invest there even. If the government has plans to, let's say, attract businessmen, whoever, to invest in other than what we see now. For me, it's heartbreaking to see all investments in gambling, honestly. Some things that even we have history, I've seen history in North Cyprus. It is history. We have those castles all the way. We have those, Khala Sultan down in the south. We have it in the north. Everywhere you see history, everywhere you see the beauty of the beaches, you can do it in a proper way that it will attract people even from the Gulf region, families. It's not only single people who are coming for gambling and going for 2-3 days. They can spend 10 days, 2 weeks. They can spend there in a very, very, very attractive way if the government would like to have that kind of investment. We need to rely on ourselves as a Turkish Cypriots. We need to recognize our country. The dreams of having one country on the island, I believe, for me, after what I see in the last few years, how the government, I will not say the people, there are lots of nice people. They would like to see the let's say island united again in a proper way, and everyone get his rights. But if you see the elections now, you will see the number of nationalism, the party, they have it, I think it's Ilam or whatever, they have double the seats now in the parliament. So this is not something not promising, and we should focus on recognizing our country, building it by ourselves, attracting people from outside, because lots are in the UK and Australia and here in the Gulf. We will be effective if they attract us, if they support us, our government. Maybe not us. Now I'm 54 years old. Maybe it's never too late, but maybe it's too late for them. But the other generation, my children, they can invest there. They can stay there if they have the proper environment. Huh?
Of course, I mean, you've raised some really, really good points there, which is not just beneficial to people like yourself, but also a few good ideas for the Turkish Cypriot state in North Cyprus. Now, first of all, not only would the Turkish Cypriots, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus be helping people in the Middle East, such as yourself, who have Turkish Cypriot heritage, but at the same time, that would be reciprocal, in that people like yourself, who are well-established individuals, who are professionals, engineers, doctors, lawyers, scientists, a lot of you will be coming back to Cyprus, perhaps as tourists, perhaps even to resettle. I know our previous guest last week, Nariman, said she had many hopes and desires to one day come to North Cyprus and open a business and invest in property. And also, it seems that with our kind of tourism campaign in North Cyprus, now people can disagree with me here, although we have a lot of historical sites and eco-tourism sites and a lot of things like this, a lot of the tourism advertisement coming from the tourism office throughout the decades has been, it seems, geared towards attracting people who want to go to Cyprus to gamble and drink. And we're not obviously condemning anyone who is into any of that stuff on this show, but we need to acknowledge that not all tourists and not all people who visit Cyprus are necessarily interested in gambling and drinking. I remember one time when I was actually in Girne, your hometown, and I was just hanging out with my friends just outside the Kyrenia Castle. You know, it's a castle that's hundreds of years old. It's just on the coast. And we were actually in the tourism office, just having a chat, to catch up with an old friend. And these tourists from Britain, who are not Turkish Cypriot, they walked into the tourism office and they just simply asked for information on what they could do during the day in Girne. And the person working in the tourism office went and told them, oh, you can go to nightclubs, you can go to disco, you can go to casino, you can do all of these things. And these two ladies, they said, actually, yes, we plan to do that in the nighttime when they open, but we want to know what can we do in the daytime. And the guy working in the tourism office, he said, oh, there's nothing to do in the daytime, just stay in the hotel and sleep. And I had to interject them. I had to say, well, there's a castle like right there across the road. Just go to the castle and have a look and learn about the history of Cyprus. So I think definitely we need to gear some of the tourism in North Cyprus towards people who have different interests, particularly history, culture, and religion. And especially in this time where even countries like Japan are starting to cater for Islamic tourism, for example, where they set up hotels and restaurants and certain tours where alcohol and gambling and things like that are not involved. And this is targeted specifically at Muslims from Middle Eastern countries, such as Qatar and UAE, who have the money to spend and they want to go to these places, but they want to enjoy these places without things that compromise their values. So you've raised some really, really good points there, and I think Cyprus definitely has a lot of potential. Riyad, I mean, it's been a real pleasure having you on and hearing your views. Before I move on to Huseyin, who's been sitting there patiently and quietly while we hear your very, very interesting stories, is there anything else you'd like to raise? Any other topics you'd like to bring up?
Well, I would like to send my special thanks and appreciations for my family, especially Auntie Ingen and her husband Mehmet, who did what they did to make it easy for us to get our IDs, by the way. So most of the job was their job, to identify my grandmother as their relative, and they get our original documents from the nufus, whatever. So they supported a lot. And on the other side, we have all the other family members, which I love them very much, and I send them my regards, especially Chimin and her husband. And they are now in Cyprus. I send them my best regards for them all. Hopefully the future will be for the new generation much better than we had, and to see Cyprus problem resolved in the proper way, inshallah.
So thank you for your time. We will get back to you before we close the show, but before we do, we want to hear a little bit from Huseyin Hoja, who's been sitting there very quietly and listening to your very interesting story. So Huseyin Hoja, you were with us last week, and unfortunately we could only allocate for you about 5 to 10 minutes, in which you told us some very interesting facts about the Jordanian royal family and the former Egyptian royal family, and their connections with Turkish Cypriots. What points would you like to add on to what you were previously saying last week, and anything that Riyad might have said during the show today?
Yeah, I'd like just to say really thanks for Riyad coming on the show. Listen to his story. I've listened to it so many times, and I had the privilege to meet Riyad and his wonderful family in Jordan, and we met several times in Cyprus, and I'm in touch with his son. And there's lots of Jordanians, by the way, who have come to Cyprus and spent lots of money there and established businesses. And we should appreciate this kind of people coming to the island. I just want to go over a few things that Riyad mentioned, because Riyad had some very, very good points. For those who know me, I travel a lot, and for example, in Bosnia, which has a very similar history to Cyprus and Palestine, you'll see that most of the foreign tourism there comes from the Khalij, comes from the Gulf. So many people from the Gulf, from Oman, from Qatar, from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, they are investing heavily, more than the Turks, believe it or not, in Bosnia. Unfortunately, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus has failed big time to reach out to its neighbors in the Middle East. And if we want good tourism, like I see in the Black Sea of Turkey, where you see lots of money being spent and lots of projects being built with Middle Eastern money, we could have the same kind of high quality tourism in North Cyprus, because as Brother Riyad said, North Cyprus has more than casinos to offer tourism. We have amazing beaches, low crime rate, beautiful historical monuments, very similar to Lebanon. Cyprus is very similar to Lebanon. I just also want to go over a point that Riyad made as well, and a very emotional story about his grandmother, is that the reason that lots of families lost touch was because of the 1948 occupation of Palestine. Because before the 1948 occupation of Palestine, most Turkish Cypriots who had gone to Palestine, and not only Palestine, but we have lots of Turkish Cypriots who actually married Lebanese, they married Egyptians, but the majority were Palestinians. I even have families in Al-Qasim, which is near Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, because there was Najd merchants living in the 20s and 30s in Palestine who would join their Palestinian brothers and go to Cyprus to do work, and they married Turkish Cypriots. So I know a Turkish Cypriot family who are not Palestinian, who are Saudi, but their grandmother is from Cyprus and they live in Al-Qasim. And so we have lots of potential to reach out to these people. We share a very common history and the conflicts that we both endured in Palestine. So in 1948, many people, half of the population maybe, fled to Lebanon, Syria, and to, of course, Jordan. Many of the Turkish Cypriots I speak to tell me that they were sending letters and the letters were destroyed by the Israeli government. And the same when letters were being sent to Cyprus after 1963 because of the conflict. Many people left their villages and they were living in enclaves and refugee camps. So they never received letters. And then we have this 20 to 30 years of a gap where families lost touch with each other. And if we had the technology we have today, maybe this void period would never existed. But now that we have this chance, I think it's very important that we reach out, and lots of people since our first program have contacted me, being very proud to say they have relatives in Jordan, in Nablus, in Haifa, in Jerusalem, lots of Turkish Cypriots And the figure that I gave, I stand by my figure, because Riyad will tell you just his family alone, maybe there are 200 descendants from one woman. So we do have a large population of Turkish Cypriots, probably more than Australia. They are the second biggest diaspora after the UK. And we need to reach out to these people. Yes, we need to have also a representative in Amman. We also need to have a representative in Beirut and in Cairo, because these are areas where there are lots of people of Turkish Cypriot descent living in. And it's very important because Jordanians actually bring a lot to North Cyprus. There is a high volume of students that come just from Jordan who are Palestinian origin. Every year I go, I see the numbers increasing and increasing. And we do need to have a representation in the country, not only to promote and reach out to the Turkish Cypriot families who have origins from Cyprus, but also a way of building communications between the two communities, that we can work together and build an economy together. Students can come to Cyprus and study in a safe environment, inshallah. So there's lots of work to do. And I've seen many Jordanians of Palestinian origin who have come to Cyprus and spent a lot of money building business. And it's never been very easy for them, because I've seen the challenges and the difficulties they're facing. More than, I've mentioned this last week, more than a Russian or maybe someone from Israel has it easier to establish business in North Cyprus. But we need to reach out to these people if we want our country to grow, and also keep this common heritage that we have together. So it's been a really pleasure to have Riyad on the show, and this amazing story.
Excellent, Huseyin. Thanks for your input there. And you've also raised some very good points as well. We could pretty much summarize this, I believe, by saying that while the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is campaigning for international recognition, it might be a good start if they first and foremost recognize their own people who are living as a massive diaspora across the Middle East. And again, like last week, we were doing the numbers, and we said that perhaps around 10,000 Turkish Cypriot women were married off to Muslim countries, primarily in the Middle East. And we went on the assumption that if each of them had 10 grandchildren, then we're talking of at least 100,000 people today. And Riyad is just one of them. I'm sure he knows many people like himself. It seems that there are plenty of them around. Last week we had many people coming forward, writing in the comments to the video. And I feel like what really needs to be done, and the one thing I hope that we can get the ball rolling on as of these programs, is that we can perhaps start to organize and mobilize the Turkish Cypriots of the Middle East to actually come forward, to build connections with each other, and perhaps even form some kind of organization with perhaps even some representation within the UK, within Australia, wherever they may be found, and start to kind of mark their territory, to kind of raise their voices so that the Turkish Cypriot government can acknowledge them, and then eventually go on to open representative offices in those countries where they're found. So yeah, if there is anyone from the Turkish Cypriot government watching, that's our message to you. Before we close the program, I'd like to go back to Riyad. Is there any last words that you have to share with us?
Well, I would like to thank you very much, and Brother Huseyin, for this opportunity. And yes, of course, we would like to see our community becoming. We have to gather all resources to, let's say, make our country recognized and well established, and we have to open our land to the Middle East, especially for, as we said, we would like to have lots of our Muslim tourism coming to the country with their families, and that needs lots of efforts from the government to divert her current policies to have a new investments, and we are ready. We are ready to share our experience, to invest wherever needed, to maybe thinking of resettling, back to our country, maybe in the retirement. We would like to have a small house there near the beach and stay in Cyprus. Why not? Thank you very much again.
That's the dream we all share, and inshallah will be coming through soon. So before I close the show, just gonna add a few comments from the audience who are watching right now. They're watching us live on Riyad TV. We have Bekir Dervish, who is a Turkish Cypriot who is born in the UK, but he's currently in Malaysia, I believe, where he's studying Islamic studies. He says, Salam alaikum, great show, thanks. We can say alaikum salam, thank you for watching. We also have people who I believe are your relatives. We've got Khaldun Balawi. Yes, this is the real family relationship. God bless you, brother. We also have another, I think, relative of yours, Safa Faiz Al-Samadi. May the soul of our grandmother rest in peace. And then I think the next one is your wife, Dua Samadi. Great interview and very good opportunity to discuss very important historical events. And lastly, Bekir again, he says, the eyes of the Turks need to look more to the east than the west. Very good point, Bekir. So with that, I'd like to close today's program. Thank you all for watching again today. And hopefully this is a topic we can continue to discuss, and hopefully we can get more Turkish Cypriot, Palestinians of Turkish Cypriot origin to come together and to have their voices heard. I've been your host today, Ertan Karpazli. Thank you for watching.
Biliyor musun? Erken rezervasyon başladı. Yazın en renkli fırsatları cyprusparadise.com'da. %40, %50 hatta %60'a varan kaçırılmaz indirimler. Erken rezervasyon yap, uçak bileti fiyatına paket tatili al. Uygun fiyata Kıbrıs tatilinin adresi cyprusparadise.com. Zaman akıp gitmeden acele edin. Bir bakmışsınız yaz gelmiş. Cyprus Paradise. Tatiliniz bizimle güvende.
Kalitenin, güvenin, hızlı teslimatın adresi Ancon Furniture. Ancon Furniture ailesi olarak yeni ürünler ile hizmete devam etmekteyiz. Yeni model koltuk takımlarımız, yatak mekanizmaları bir dokunuş ile açılıp bir dokunuş ile kapanabilmektedir. Bir dokunuş ile açtığımız yatak mekanizmasının yatak çarşafı kullanıma hazır, serili olarak içinden çıkmaktadır. Yıl sonuna kadar herhangi bir koltuk takımı alan her müşterimize akıllı sehpa hediyemizdir. En iyi ürün, en iyi fiyat. Sadece Ancon Furniture'da. Bize uğramadan karar vermeyin. En iyisini biz yapana kadar daha iyisi yok.